So, good morning, everybody. Just want to make a note that that alien stuff above me, I was playing with that a couple months ago, and I put all the stuff behind me to remind me of stuff what I was doing a couple months ago, but not everything here is relevant anymore, sort of. But that is allegory. The alien stuff is allegory. No different than like the Bible stuff, no different than the Iliad and the Odyssey, no different than Epic of Gilgamesh. I'm not saying those things didn't happen or have some element of truth, but it all stories that get exaggerated, or the DNA changes, the costume and the wardrobe and the skin and the phenotypical characteristics change, but the story is still the same. There's still that whole good and evil, good versus evil, and then all the filler in between, the good and evil, and the cast of characters that you find in the archetypes of personalities that we all relate to on some level. Okay, so that really isn't relevant as far as my perspective. I'm not going down the alien rabbit hole. Okay, that's fun to read, like the Grimm fairy tales, but it's still a fairy tale. All right. So, anyways, I was watching last night. My husband was doing whatever he was doing, and I was waiting for him to come home. And so I was watching some of the documentaries on Netflix. I'm telling you, Netflix, if you want to give yourself a world of knowledge of what other people are going through, and that gives you something like a seed of information to work from, watch the documentaries on the people's journeys through their diseases, because then you'll see similarities in your world, and you're going to realize that not only are you not alone, but there's so many similarities that the only difference is the catalyst and the DNA and the symptoms and at what order of operations they come in. Because when you have a whole body that's 11 different systems, all the diseases that come from the body with 11 different systems are not going to be that different. They're all going to be related in some way, but there'll be more of a pronouncement or more of an aggressive response in one area of the body versus the other. Okay, so even though I had never had heart issues or high blood pressure, I've had low blood pressure, and I feel heart palpitations when the environment speeds up. Okay, but have I ever had heart disease? Never had heart disease, but I do feel heart things happen. I do feel, heat rising sometimes when I couldn't tell you the catalyst. There's so many things that could factor in why you would feel heat rise in your body. And some could say, oh, it's infection or it's menopause, you're having hot flashes. Yeah, well, menopause, hot flashes, all the different diseases, they all are periods of evolution. And there could be a small, quick period of evolution, or it could be a long, drawn-out process where someone's suffering through that evolution. And so that show that's called Unrest, and Jennifer Brea was the one that made. She's a film director, and she made a journey, a video journey of her process of going through chronic fatigue syndrome and looking for the cure and all that. And she's mentioning why women seem to be afflicted with chronic fatigue syndrome more than men, and why men always thought it was like some female hysteria. And I remember when I was going through my PMDD, I had an aspect of that where I couldn't get out of bed, where I was sleeping for like all day, or I would sleep all day and be up all night, but I couldn't get out of bed. I would be eating up a storm, and I'd be irritable, and I'd have constipation and stomach issues. And I was saying like, oh shit, I remember. And then this last couple months, back in end of July, middle of August, I felt that version of COVID and my co-infection. And my husband said he couldn't get out of bed at all for at least a day when he had it. I couldn't get out of bed for a couple days, where I would just be sleeping. And I was watching her go through the process of crawling up the stairs, where it was just so tiring, like she couldn't even keep her head up. And then she gets in touch with so many people who had the same issue across the world. Like she gets online and she finds groups of people who are suffering the same thing, and they're all, in their bed with everything around them, no different than me when I was sick for those few weeks. And they're trying to find cure after cure after cure after cure, and it is an endless journey. But that was the most extreme. But it was something that I could identify with, because I remember how difficult it was. I would miss things. I would miss family functions. Okay, PMDD wasn't like chronic fatigue because it was the triggers were my hormones when they were changing. Because why women get it? Like let me go back to when I said, well, why do women get it more? Because we are evolutionary. We hold life. We go through evolutionary processes all the time because we can hold life, not just like cells and organs and all that, but we hold a uterus. We can actually carry a baby in our body. So we're going to have the chronic fatigue. We're going to have the PMDD. We're going to have a lot of the diseases that men don't even fucking understand. Some men will experience it, yes. But it seems that certain diseases, like my husband, he doesn't get chronic fatigue. He barely even fucking sleeps. Okay? But he also is aging. And he's been told through his community, and he was raised in the old world from his grandpa, okay, that you work hard and you keep going, and it's like capitalism, right? Everybody loves capitalism. Well, not everybody, but the capitalistic way is to keep working until you die. Keep working so hard until everything breaks, until you can't work anymore. And then when you can't work anymore, then you suffer and take your different drugs to help you move out of this realm. And that is a mentality that I'm just like, I'm not saying I'm a communist. I'm not saying I'm a capitalist. I'm saying there's got to be a balance in between the two. And I don't even know what you call it. it's where we're headed right now. Though the right-wing party would think that we're going into communism, but okay, whatever. But that's the thing, is that women hold life. And so chronic fatigue is when you have to rest and let the things work itself out. You have to let things, like, I'm trying to find an analogy. Okay, resting means that you get your energy back, that you allow things to, like, when a company has to take a day off, or take, like, a teacher in-service day. They're with the kids 5 days a week. They got to have a weekend. And so let the kids take a day off. And so the teachers can then take a day off from dealing with the kids and work with the adults. And so there's got to be a point of where the teachers can go and recalibrate. And so it's a rest for the kids. So the kids, when they're getting taught by the teachers 5 days a week, and then they get a rest, let's say once every couple months. I mean, that's a little extreme as far as the body processes. But that's the same analogy, is that you got to give time for all 11 different systems to start speaking to each other, because you're doing so much stuff. You're invading all of their stuff because you're doing this and doing that and constantly making them react. And so when you're sleeping, now they get to be the one to be the actor, and then you have to react to their processes. Okay, so it's a whole night and day thing. During the day, you're in charge of what's going on for the most part. At night, the body is in charge of what's going on. And you have to allow the body to be in charge of what's going on during that 8 hours, 5 hours, whatever. But when the energy is really energetic, or the atmosphere is so energetic, then you work as hard as you work. Like, I've been telling you, the last couple of days, I've been feeling fucking amazing. The atmosphere has been right on point. And I see it translate in my dog as well as myself and my productivity levels. And so, but then I have to then make up for it. If I'm up at 4 in the morning, which is insane, then around 1 or 2 or 3, I'm like falling out. So I was up at 4 yesterday. And I told my husband that yesterday. I was up since 4. And so when he came home around like 12 or 1, then we ordered a pizza, and he had to go somewhere after. But we were watching a movie or something that's called The End of the World. And I fell asleep on the couch. I'm like, because I've been up since 4, and I just had a bunch of freaking pizza. Well, not a bunch, but I had some pizza and some roasted chicken and JoJo's. And so he went off to do his thing, and I'm here. And then I had some Coke too, Coca-Cola. And then there's the Sugar Monster. Then I was craving cupcakes. So I told my husband when he come home, can you please go get me some scones and get me something, or not scones, but get me a cupcake or something. And finally, I guess when we went to Giant Eagle, it was like, they had cupcakes, but they're like red velvet. I don't want red velvet. I just got a scone and some macaroons. But that's the thing, is you have to make up for any lack of sleep. So if you're up at 4 in the morning and you start feeling tired, because I'm the best time that I can think and write and do stuff is really early in the morning. So if I am able to get up and I'm up at 4 in the morning, I'll be up and I'll go through my processes in the morning. And I have a very strict process in the morning. I mean, it's like, you know, go to the restroom, do what you got to do, take a shower if need be. And then I go through my processes of turning on my internet and turning on this and turning on that. Well, not turn my internet, but turn my computer and make some coffee if I need to, and get my dog some stuff. And so there's a very methodical approach that I approach every morning with. And it's the same pretty much every morning unless I'm sick or something else is going on. And so then I'll go through and do my stuff. And that's why I do these Facebook Lives every day, because it's part of my methodical approach. And so then throughout the day, then, you know, we'll see what happens. And I feel the stuff goes on throughout the day, and I do my whatever processes, you know, in the afternoon and at night. And so that, and then if I'm tired, if I'm up way hella early, then I'm going to go take a nap. I'm not going to withhold sleep from myself. I don't have my life filled with back-to-back activities, with back-to-back friends, family, associations. I know people want to get ahead, occupationally, professionally, whatever. But I'll tell you, at the expense of what? You have to actually deal with your issues. And so Jennifer Brea, in that Unrest movie or documentary, she Harvard graduate, had a lot of connections. Her husband had a lot of connections, and, you know, with Hollywood and Oprah. And so she was doing everything, traveling around, kayaking, doing everything a person, you know, wants to do and should be doing, right? Because that's what we've been taught, that you go through a process, you go do all your things and you have fun, and then you grow old and die. And you hope you have a lot of time in between when you graduate from college to your profession and getting married and having a bunch of kids, and following that same formula that everyone seems to follow in academia and even other places excuse me, that are not academia. And so she found that she had that, her whole formula of life was cut short, and that she got an infection. She treated that infection with whatever. She used antibiotics, and then come to find out a little bit later on, she was hit where she could not move. She couldn't move. She couldn't get out of bed. Her brain was all messed up. And I'll tell you, you know, when you're, and this is in 2017, so, you know, the movie was made in 2017. I'm sure that from 2010, 2013, at least, you know, however many years that led up to her making the movie, frequencies are changing, viruses are mutating. So many experiments were done that people didn't know about, but were getting privy to. And so who's to say what she picked up along the way, and that whatever she had inside, even a predisposed issue, whatever antibiotic she used was the last straw that broke the camel's back and then triggered that aggressive disease. And so when I felt the COVID-19, I felt the co-infection of the pneumonia, and I remember when I did take sulfa, and it was an aggressive antibiotic, that I landed in the hospital, and then I put it together that when I had pneumonia coming into America from Vietnam, they used antibiotics and they used sulfa. And I looked it up. They said, yeah, they had to stop using the sulfa in the 90s because they used it so much in the 70s from all the infection from the war and all the stuff that was going on. And so, yeah, maybe a 20-year efficacy period, or even less, with some of these antibiotics that are being so widely distributed out there in the world. And that's why there's antibiotic resistance. And then the person suffers even more because the antibiotics really pissed off the beast inside, and it created more viral babies. Like I mentioned in my book, that taking antibiotics, whatever it is, whether it's elderberry syrup or anything else, yeah, you might do a type of a pepticis on a B cell, you know, type of lymphoma or B cell memory, but then there's other parts of the body that then get antibiotic resistance, and then you're developing babies, and those little babies from the positive or negative, because those antibiotics are negative, you're the positive. Now you're developing these little proteins that are not only trying to protect the body from that, but also it's arming the arsenal to the beast that's inside, and then it'll attack the body, and then the body's going to try to come back from it, and that's where the pain comes from. It's the body under attack, and it's going through an evolutionary and autophagy process along with a pepticis, but the person isn't coming out from that. They're stuck in the autophagic loop. And that's what chronic fatigue syndrome, that's what loop, that's all autoimmunity is. You're stuck in the autophagic loop, the pepticis loop, the autophagic loop, and the person can't seem to get out of it. Why? Because I didn't hear anything in that movie. I didn't hear them mention anything about salt. I didn't even hear anything about diet or what food I'm sure she was eating food, but she was more concerned. Her whole journey in that movie, was more concerned about finding a cure, talking to a million specialists, doing all these little brain scans, being a human guinea pig, which Harvard is famous for in so many different areas. Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Princeton, all the different, high level schools, they do so many experiments on humans in social contexts, in biological and physiological contexts. So yeah, she gave herself to the science community and she never got better. She won't get better. And then she's an activist. The only way she's going to actually get fucking better, and I'm going to be really honest, I hope she watches this. I'm not going to reach out to her because I'm not trying to get her into my cult of health and wellness. Okay. If this is organic enough where someone reaches out to her and tells her about my information, great. If she doesn't ever hear from this, then she wasn't meant to. But I'm not out to save anyone. But what would save all of their asses if they actually face the pain? Because when you see the people that she got in contact with and they're all in bed, they can't even move. They have to have their family members pick them up and move them. That means that they have let their body atrophy because there's a low sodium, if at all, diet. They don't want to feel the pain of building up the pressure and feel the pain of feeling that the blockages, that the cross-functional communication was inhibited by just the darkness from all the antibiotics that cause the darkness in different parts of the body. So then it cuts off the communication. When you don't talk to your parents, you don't have that communication anymore. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. It just depends on what's going on. And is it all bad or all good? It just depends on if it's appropriate. And sometimes it's appropriate, sometimes it's not. And so, when you're cutting off communication within a lot of your central nervous system and your muscular system and your digestive system and all the different systems that I could name 11 different systems, then you're going to have antibodies and things get stuck that should have left the body a long time ago, but they get stuck and they take up residence, and then they send off these crazy messages, and then they take up the resources, and so they're thriving because you feel the pain. Because I remember when that chick Jennifer was taking some kind of remedy or some kind of cure from one doctor that gave her something, and I forget what it was. And she was able to go walk around. She was able to go walk into her car, and it was like a period of like relief, right? The eye of the storm. So she can walk to her car when she couldn't before. She can go to the parade and go watch, her alma mater do stuff in the parade. And so then she'd be in a wheelchair and stuff. And then when she come home, she had so much pain, like everything that monster allowed her to do then made her pay for it. And she was in excruciating pain, just couldn't even get up the doorstep to get even into the house. Right after that activity, she had the pain where then her sickness came back. Why? Because you're not supposed to be cured. You're supposed to feel everything and let the body release it because her antibodies are programming. And so so they don't talk about changing the programming in the body. They're changing about just keep everything what it is and just go and do and nip and a tuck. And so while the person's being tortured by the programming, by the vital information resource under siege. That's what a virus is. Okay, and viruses run the other viruses, parasites, protozoa, proteins, fungus, and bacteria. So they're doing targeted approaches, but they're not doing a whole now I don't call it holistic because holistic is not fucking holistic. Okay, that's the fucked up thing about holistic market is they do targeted approaches. And so how do you fix somebody in that situation? They got to fucking face the pain. They got to eat a higher sodium diet. They have to do a few waterfalls to release the demons. Then they have to open up their alimentary canal and they have to blow their fucking nose. They got to get the poop out. Okay? And it's painful. It is painful. I'm sorry, but you've had the gift of great life, going to Harvard and doing all that stuff, and you were given the gift of that kind of window of amazing opportunities of accomplishments. And now it's the devil saying, now you got to pay me back. Because it's not like you can go to a window and just give money to the devil and say, okay, don't give me any diseases anymore that's in my genetic line or whatever I picked up along the way. No, you got to pay in the pain. That's the insane thing. So while I'm here at home, staying home more than not, I'm not out there partying. I'm not out there hanging out with people, going to concerts and eating at restaurants all the time. I'm not out there with a bunch of people getting that social capital and getting all that hormonal release. No, what am I doing? I'm paying for all of what I did, as fun. Now, the last couple years, the last 6 years, I've paid for my life. Even though I had to pay for it for at least 3 weeks out of the month, 2 weeks out of the month, when I came down with my PMDD, the times that I was not dealing with the PMDD, I was doing amazing things, and I was, dealing with the PMD the wrong way. I was dieting or taking hormones like progesterone cream that did nothing for me. I was doing the birth control, trying to use that as a way to manage it. And so, all of that, even though I was still down for those 2 weeks paying for my lifestyle, I was dealing with it wrong. And so then it's going to come back to bite me. And it did the last 6 years, because while I opened up my immune system and activated it, then I had to pay for every single thing that I did that was wrong. Whether it was using the oh God, what was that? The borax, the boron pills, all, the diet matrix earth, using that. I'm paying for the kombuchas and the apple cider vinegars that I use internally and externally. I mean, I'm paying for all the supplements that I use. I'm paying for every single thing that I use in the holistic market and the allopathic market the last couple years. I am paying for it. I'm paying for all the cannabis I ever used. I am paying for every single time that I got drunk, so drunk where I'd be throwing up and then having a horrible hangover the next day. I'm paying for it all. I'm paying for every single thing I did to my body that was attacking it in some way or another. And so, yeah, the devil's going to take his due. And so some people don't want to pay back the devil. So they're okay with, and I get it, they're okay with just keeping the party going. They work and keep the party going. Work and keep the party going until the body cannot party and work anymore. And that's exactly what's going on right now, is that with a higher frequency environment, we're in Judgment Day. This is literally Terminator Judgment fucking Day. And so I recognize that. That's why I was just like, even subconsciously, I knew that I had to stay home. Even when everyone else was going out, even when I was feeling okay, I feel okay now, but if I go into another environment all the time, I know what I'm in for. It's being around people who are going in a different way. Okay? And so, yeah. And I was going to see what I've been speaking off the cuff here, right? I haven't been looking at my notes here. But, I mean, let's see if I missed anything. Wow. Best practices. Jeez. Yeah, so suffering is when you ignore everything else and are only tunnel vision about one issue. Because everything is connected. And so, yeah, if the economy is going crazy, then everything else is going to have a chain reaction after that. If you guys are having so many issues with your body, it's going to affect the economy. They're all interrelated, okay? If there's a change over here, there's going to be a chain reaction, a domino effect. When you take an antibiotic for one thing, it's going to be a domino effect. You may not see the domino effect right away, but it will happen and it will compound on itself. And so when you release those little damn demons, then you won't have to deal with their domino effect of reverberating inside your galaxy of your universe. But when you're keeping those little demons inside, and what are these demons? These little demons are the byproducts of the autophagic process when you get exposed to a new evolution. When your cells are breaking down, degradation because of a new evolution called autophagy, which it's a good thing, where does that waste material go? And then when you're feeding your body and it's pulling nutrients from different places and it's building up that cell that was once degraded, and now all that waste material that is a byproduct of that process, where does it go? Well, when you have an atrophied immune system, and not just like your adaptive and your innate, but it is your alimentary canal. It is your ear, nose, and throat. This is your immune system, your ear, nose, and throat, and your colon and your intestines. That's your immune system. You can call it your gut, but your immune system is your alimentary canal. And that's what I also need to mention, is that your immune system is your whole fucking body. Your immune system, see, when we compartmentalize our systems, we don't think of them as something connected. Though we do, but we don't. When we're talking about our immune system, it's like, oh, it's just our immune system. We got to go and play with the antibodies and play with the innate and the adaptive and do a nip and a tuck and add this and add that. No, when your alimentary canal is atrophied because you don't want to fucking poop, you don't want to diarrhea if you need to, you don't want to cough and sneeze and blow your nose, then where does the byproducts and the waste material from the body going through an evolution, from a new introduction of a mitochondrial DNA virus that comes in, where does the excess, or where does the byproducts go? Where does the waste material go? Oh, if it doesn't leave the body altogether, it'll turn into a clone of you. It'll be your alter ego. It'll be the things that you talk to at night. It'll be the spirits. It'll be everything that you watch in the horror movies. And when you release it, it's like a fucking exorcism. Okay? I'm gonna tell you, when you finally realize how to work your alimentary canal on both ends, some people are priding themselves that they haven't done it. Okay, that's fine. But maybe you need to. Just because you don't have to doesn't mean that maybe you should do it, and see that there's probably more inside your colon than you even realize. Okay? And so when you are finally pushing out those little freaking poop babies, literally you will feel like the labor pains. Like, I can probably imagine what it's like to push out a baby, pushing out some of this poop. It's like a fucking poop. It's like that little poopy thing on, what is it? South Park? I forget his name. Mr. Poopy or something. Okay? But South Park is everything. South Park tells you, yeah, that our world's run by kids, and we're always trying to figure out who killed Kenny. And that little poopy baby, that little poopy thing that's running around, you know, it is another entity of you. It is you that if you slap on some hair and teeth and a nose that's you. That's all of your crap. What is the crap? Crap is the byproduct from the cells and the foods that's been processed. But you can't get rid of all that crap can't get rid of all the byproduct of your cells without eating food, because the food not only reestablishes the viability of the cell, but food also, the byproduct of the food and your cell waste material also is housed in the byproduct of the food. And so they're all working together, and then it's its own entity. And so if you put your poop like in some kind of incubator and you add stuff to it, it could turn into a human if it wanted to. Okay, that's why poop is byproduct. That's why pee is biohazard. All the bodily fluids that you release is DNA that, you know, that will infect somebody else, that they're going to have to go and figure out how to deal with it and release whatever. So that's why with this virus that keeps going on, it should have worked with the population and we shouldn't have no more pandemics. But all the therapies and even all the antibiotics that are being used against the symptoms keeps mutating this virus. If people get away from the medical and the holistic, if they get away from the shamans, got away from the drugs, got away from the prescription drugs, got away from all the remedies, got away from the holistic people and the MLMers selling you all the bullshit, we wouldn't have such mutations. That if we wanted to upgrade a population, we would have biotech mildly add stuff, or we train somebody. Here's the thing, how do you get a virus that is innovative? You train somebody who voluntarily goes through some hard stuff, like, I don't know, like when I was doing all my studying, that was difficult, right? Because then you have to go and work your brain energy and do all this stuff. And if I wanted to learn a musical instrument, I would go, you know, I would learn it from a person who's professional at it, and I would go through that process and learn, you know, and then if I want to be an athlete, I'd go and work my body and do the athlete type of stuff. And so then I'd have like 5 or 6 different innovations, and then my DNA is full of innovation. And then a scientist can take my DNA and do whatever and give it to somebody else. They would upgrade it to it, and then they would go and see if they can then have a more of a familiarity to the sports and to, you know, musical instruments and to studying intellectual stuff. And so that's how you innovate viruses, is by innovating people. People are the virus. Okay? But this whole thing of a strong antibiotic to then cause and then a strong antibiotic plus then adding other, yeah, I mean, I get it, but holy shit, there are ways to innovate. But see, that's it. We have 7.9 billion people with so many different diseases, And our whole planet is just so full of people. Like, seriously, you don't really realize how many people there are until you go to like China. Until you go into a plane inside China, where they pack everyone in and everyone's hawking and coughing and hacking up loogies, and you're like, oh my God. And you realize how close quarters, and you see that the buildings in China, people are stacked on top of each other. I live in an amazing town in Ohio where it's like more rural. Even in the city, it's rural. This is utopia. When you think about it, Ohio's utopia compared to where I came from, which is California, which is kind of the same thing as China. People are stacked on top of each other. And so then they can't help but breathe each other's DNA. And then that's how pandemics sustain itself, because not only are they so close quarters to each other, but they're also taking their remedies, keep mutating the same versions of the same thing. And so this pandemic will never end. It never has ended. We just switched from a flu pandemic to now a COVID. And who knows what else is next. Right now they're talking about monkeypox, but I'm not worried about monkeypox. Okay, so, but then now we're in a heat dome because the atmosphere is so thick, full of plasma. When I look at the sun, it was trying to shine through translucent, plasmic atmospheric material. It was even the light when the sun casts through the atmosphere of where I'm at, it refracts differently. And I was saying that to my neighbor yesterday. I was talking to my neighbor yesterday. She passed by and I was like, yeah, I'll just chat it up with her. It's been a while. And yeah, I was telling her, yeah, I mean, she's, been noticing that there has been people dying from kidney issues after a lot of the different therapies that are out there, and people are dying left and right. And when you're dealing with so many aggressive therapies and aggressive symptoms that are coming to surface, and you have a really hot climate bringing, replicating proteins, yeah, people are not going to be able to get ahead of their cancers. They'll get their diagnosis, and before they can put a cure on them, it's too much. The cancer has spread because it's so hot outside. It is so fucking hot outside. And here I am wearing a sweater, right? I'm one big, what do you call it? I won't say hypocrite, but conflict. I like to wear sweaters. No matter what, I like to wear sweaters. I don't like I don't like being exposed. I like the protection. You can think it's psychosomatic, whatever, but I wear sweaters and all that stuff because, first of all, I'm not trying to do anything, whatever. I'm not trying to be eye candy. I want you guys to pay attention to me, not to all this stuff. But sometimes if it's that hot, I'll have just a regular t-shirt on. But no, I mean, this is about you getting the information and about what I look like or what my body looks like. My body looks fine, if you need to know. Not that you did. Let me drink some of my coffee. So yeah, the atmosphere is really thick. It's very thick. And when we equating the jelly juice fermentation process, because remember, we were talking about 72 degrees versus 99 degrees. And do you put in the fridge or do you leave it out for, forever? And I know. And so when you put the jelly juice, the actual recipe in the fridge, it still ferments, but it's a slower fermentation. So when it's cooler outside, it's a slower fermentation. It's a slower cell replication, slower infection, slower conception. Though you adjust your own thermostat, people have their own thermostats within that will then cause cancer, disease, chronic illness, and autoimmune disorder. So it's like infinite sacred geometry. You have a cell that has its own environment, and the cell is surrounded by something like an organ, and then there's another concentric circle of another type of layer of microbiome and atmosphere and environment. And on top of that, so you can keep taking everything down to the most microscopic, the micro level, all the way to the macro level, and it's still temperature and it's still biodiversity that have to react to each other. And you can play around with your temperature in your house relative to what's outside, and that could give you some kind of relief because your temperature inside your body might be a little bit different than the temperature out there. And so it's a constant, I constantly play with my thermostat because sometimes I'm feeling hotter, and it's not even that hot outside, but I'm feeling hotter for whatever reason. And so before I had it at 68 degrees or 69, I haven't had it at 69 degrees in a while. And my husband's like, dude, it's freaking cold in here. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm heating up for some reason. And he's cold. I'm like, dude, you have more of the fat on you. You have more body mass to you. Why are you freaking cold at 68 degrees? And I'm freaking hot at 69 degrees. And he's just like, I don't know. And it's not even, it's like 58 degrees outside, but I turned my AC down to 66. Okay. And it's 58 degrees outside. So I turned it to 66 and I have a sweater on. And so you see, it's kind of the conflicts of just the different temperatures of different microbiomes. And so, and you have to factor all that in. So if the atmosphere is heating up and you're seeing, and you have obesity or emaciation issues, then you got to really look at your lifestyle. Is it worth hiking out there in the dry, arid desert? Is it worth being out there all the time? When you have predisposed issues, can you take into account that the atmosphere has changed? It's gotten hotter. Because even my neighbor noticed that after July 4th, the atmosphere was so suffocating that she couldn't even be outside. It was so suffocating. And I'm like, yeah, I remember after July 4th, shit changed. It changed. And we're coming into now the 24th, which you hear about. Now, I'm not Christian, but they're talking about like a red heifer and the Judaism stuff and them sacrificing something. And that's, the Rosh Hashanah. That's right, Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Passover is over in the springtime, Easter. And so you look at the Jewish holidays, and all the religions, I don't even want to say Judaism, because remember, the Rosicrucians are the Jewish mystics. So of course, all the different holidays in Judaism are going to be taken into account, and all the numerology and all that stuff, right? And you have the Christian Gnostics, so you have the Christmas, and all the pagan stuff. And you have the Hermetics, which is all the pagan stuff as well. And they do all the Hermetic stuff, medicine and the Greek pantheon and all that. And so the whole Rosicrucian encapsulates everything in the West and some aspects of the East. Though, in the East, like India and China, they have their own religions that are not that far removed from Western religions, but they have a little bit different storyline. But it's the same thing, still based upon the human condition, and someone's wiser that taught someone that was not wiser and edified them as they were deifying them. And this is whole parent-child. It really, the whole world is about parent-child relationships and how you dress up the parent and how you dress up the child. And the child becomes a parent and then evolves the storyline and evolves the storyline and evolves the storyline until the storyline is almost unrecognizable. And then you have to trace it back then where that storyline came from originally to figure out, well, what happened here? Somehow the storyline became so subverted that what used to be like Lucifer was a great thing, and the guy of light or the angel of light now is like known as a dark thing, is a bad thing when you listen to Hollywood. And so, somehow that whole storyline of Lucifer being an amazing thing became the evil thing, and somehow somebody subverted that. And you don't know where that happened. It could happen, who knows? All the different religions and the offshoots subverted the storyline. And so then you can't even believe stories anymore because you don't know where you don't know who subverted that line. One line could have, one word that came before or after a noun, and so it changed the whole dynamic of that whole storyline, that whole theme. And that is all of the politics, religion, and science. You just change one word or one chemical thing to develop another chemical reaction, then everything changes thereafter. And so do you really have the original context of the storylines, or are you just getting somebody's version of it who wanted to mess with it based upon how they wanted to evolve what their teachers told them? That's what people were doing with my stuff. They were trying to evolve the jelly juice. Oh yeah, why don't you add this thing to it or add that thing to it? Or if people were sending me, emails, which I delete and block all stupid emails, just so you know. And they're like, yeah, you should add this to it, add some garlic to it. So they're like, why are you trying to evolve my shit? Keep the recipe the way it is. 2 cups of water, 2 cups of cabbage, whatever, 1 tablespoon of salt, and you ferment it, and and transition on it slowly. Okay, transition to it slowly, and there's no reason to add anything else to it. There's no reason to. And so And so, yeah, I don't want anybody evolving my storyline. And that's the thing in what Jennifer Brea in that movie Unrest was saying, that you have to be the one to tell your story. You allow someone else to tell your story, they'll fuck it up. They will take it so far from what the reality is, and they'll put their own spin on it. When men tell the story of women, forget it. Men don't know what it's like to be women. And women telling stories about men, women have no idea what men go through. We have an idea, but men know what men go through because they're men. They have the same plumbing. They have the same expectations. Not the same, exactly. Okay? And so you never leave your storyline left to somebody else to tell. Now, if you are asked to be involved in telling your story, okay. But even then, when you're asked to be involved in telling your story, you never know what kind of editing is going to happen after the cameras leave your house. After, the interviewer leaves your situation. When I was interviewed by those people from BuzzFeed and whatever else, I thought that storyline was go this way, when in actuality, the storyline went totally the opposite. So then you have to be the one to tell your story, and other people's stories out there are going to be irrelevant because you are the horse's mouth. Listening to somebody else's version of you is like reading the Bible, and you have no idea who subverted the Bible. You have no idea what they added to it, what they took away from it. Some people are like, oh yeah, the book of Enoch. No, okay, fine. But then that's why you don't read other people's stories and take it for face value. It can be something to add to your arsenal, that there's certain things in the storylines that are amazing. But to literally regurgitate every single line in a storyline then speaks to what they were doing in the 1960s and 70s. When Charles Manson was trying to find the people who were lost, that didn't have their own storyline, or they had a storyline, but they didn't know how to use it to their advantage. And so he used their storyline to his advantage. And so when you don't think for yourself and you don't evolve your own storyline, and you're always taking from somebody else's, where you're literally regurgitating everything that they're saying literally, then you become like a follower of a Charles Manson, because then he used that to his advantage, and he used them. He hypnotized them. He was a lesson in how easy it is to turn people into something amazing or something horrible by developing a religion. Manson really literally taught people how to hypnotize people and convert them and turn them into something that maybe could be amazing or could be deadly. Okay? And so that's why you can't be, that's why you have to now deal with your own imbalances, because if unbalanced people are ripe and susceptible for politics, religion, and scientific dogmas, and they'll be subject to social experiments, scientific experiments, and being exploited through capitalism and communism too, and being used as a tool for somebody else's agenda. That's why I don't want my group active. That's why I don't want anyone next to me. That's why I don't want people worshiping my shit. You have your own storyline to say. You have your own shit to deal with. I'm dealing with my shit, and I'm going to give you guys my version of what's going on, and you will find a way to apply some of my stuff to your world and see what kind of evolution comes out of your world. But no, I don't want clones of Jillian. Absolutely not. You all hold everything whatever I'm doing, you guys can do it too, but it takes work. I happen to get a lot of training as a child, and I have a lot of a different background, but I also put myself in situations that are crazy. I purposely took road trips across the US by myself. I purposely took my car and drove to other towns and planted myself there for at least maybe 6, 7, 2, 3, 4, 5 months. I purposely wanted to get to know a culture, a belief system, another way of thinking. That's literally what it's going to take for you guys to figure out how to be overall a well-rounded person that isn't biased and one-sided. That you are able to take on all the different points of views. Doesn't mean you have to adopt them all, but then you understand them and you have tolerance for them, and then maybe you can develop something else out of all of that. That when you have all the ingredients of every single thought process, religion, and political and scientific thought process right at your disposal, and you can read everything and point out the biases and point out the marketing and point out all the deceptive shit going on, then you can develop something that is authentic, that is unbiased, that understands what people are going through and why they do it, and then what do you have to offer to them that would end their suffering without ending their life? Because really, why do humans do what they do? Because they want to end the suffering without dying. They want to be innovative. They want to be recognized as a sentient being, to be respected. Humans really don't want that much. Humans just want to feel like they're valued by not only themselves, but the people around them. And when they're not valued, they go and destroy themselves. If they don't value themselves, ain't no one gonna value them. And so when they don't value themselves, the world doesn't value them, then they self-destruct. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so now it's time for you to realize that you can value yourself, but you're gonna have to take yourself mostly out of the games out there. And let me tell you, I know how difficult it is. That's why I have no expectation that everybody gets this. Some will, and many will not. And I'm okay with that. But as long as I recognize that, then I'm not obsessed that people get it. And when I recognize that not everybody is going to get it, and they still want to be part of my world, next to me, that's like oil and water. That's not going to work. Okay? And so then you will derive strength from realizing that you don't want to cannibalize somebody else or exploit them or try to convert them, because you'll only suffer from the expectation. And so the power is actually releasing versus trying to convert someone on a constant basis. And that's what parents do. That's what friends and family do. That's what even husbands and wives do. They try to convert their significant other into a mirror image of them. And I realize now I can't convert my husband. Believe me, I told my husband, I want you to live, but he'll do whatever he will do. And I'll do everything I can to keep him alive within my power, without making him wrong. Because he's suffering too, like everybody else out there. There's so much going on out there, predisposed issues, the environment's changing, everything's changing, people are changing, industries are changing. And so now it's easier to be on my own than it is to deal with people just suffering all the time. And so when I interact with you this way, this is how you get my information without me being pulled into your bullshit. Okay? I like to hear some of your testimonies, but I want you to obviously characterize them appropriately with discernment. And yeah, I mean, humans are supposed to encourage each other to rise to a different level without forcing them to do that. And we're supposed to show each other how to do that in some way that isn't forceful, or I don't know. I don't know. This is what I think what humans are supposed to do. We haven't seen that. We've just seen people force each other and converting each other and coming from so many emotions. But I think there is another way for humans to help each other without saving each other, without forcing each other, converting each other. That we provide them the path and show them the path. This is one path you can take, and it's an amazing path, but it's a painful path. Or you can take this path. And so, and not saying that my path is any better. Because let me tell you, if you are way behind the eight ball, then it's better for you to go and hope for a cure. Could that guy that's just lost all hope, who is so skinny in bed, is the jelly juice the way for him, and eating food and facing the pain the way for him? It may not be. As much as I want someone like a person who is bedridden with chronic fatigue syndrome, who can't even get out of bed, as much as I want them to see that they could finally have a life they want, they would go through a few years of pain. But they've been dealing with pain for their whole life, so what's a few years? But let me tell you, when you're going through it, you hope that there is some, window of respite. But I can't guarantee that. And so if you can't guarantee that at some point there's going to be, you're going to have a time to rest from all that work. And that's the thing. If you've been resting your whole life, literally resting, because you have chronic fatigue, and then now you have to work your body, do you think you have what it takes to work? Does that person who's bedridden, who's been resting for the last 5 years, will he have what it takes to work? And what I mean by that, when you're doing the waterfalls, when you're eating food, when you finally get off the J juice and you eat food, and then you're feeling the mucus come up and you're feeling the pains in your belly and you feel pains all over, do you have what it takes to work? That is work. That's your cells working. Pain is work. And so if being cured is the only way for you to go, that's like you're resting all the time. When do you work? Oh, but we have work in our society as, oh, you go to a job and you give your blood, sweat, and tears to somebody else, but you don't give it to yourself. But when you actually work your cells, it's painful. Just like going to work every day can be painful for some people. They hate their job. Well, now we're in a new world. Time to figure out how to work differently. Work smarter, not harder. All right, bye.